Today we're going to learn how to make Bearnaise. Now, Bearnaise is an emulsion sauce, and we first have to know and understand, and I think you've had the opportunity to already make a hollandaise. So it's the same process of making a hollandaise, it just has some other ingredients that turns it into a Bearnaise. So let's talk a little bit about those ingredients. So we first need to start off by making a reduction. And for a Bearnaise reduction, we need shallots, we have crushed black peppercorns, we have chopped up thyme stems, fresh, and we have a little bit of white wine vinegar. And we're going to make a reduction with this, and we're going to reduce it down by 2/3. And once we reduced it down by 2/3, we're then going to take it and put it into a mixing bowl, and then we're going to be adding a couple of egg yolks to it. We will then mix that together so that we can start cooking our mixture over a hot water bath, creating ribbons like we do for a hollandaise. And once we get to the stage where it's at ribbons, we will then start adding in our clarified butter, a little bit at a time to make the emulsion sauce. And during adding the clarified butter, we will be adding both lemon juice and a little bit of water to either thin it if we need to during the process of adding the butter. And then at the end, we're going to fold it all together with some fresh chopped parsley, some fresh chopped tarragon, and we're going to give it a little bit of a kick with a little bit of cayenne pepper. So let's get started with the reduction. All right, first step is reduction. So I got a pan here. I had it off. It's still a little warm. I don't want it to be too hot. I don't want it to reduce too fast. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to add the peppercorns. We're going to add the chopped thyme stems. We're going to add the shallots. And then we're going to add our white wine vinegar. Now it's a little warm, so I'm just going to go in there carefully. I'm going to pull it off of the heat just a little bit because I don't want it to over-reduce in the beginning. So I'm going to put the fire back on it, and I'm trying to extract some of that flavor from the shallots, from the stems of the fresh thyme, and from the peppercorns as well. So we're going to let this reduce. I'm going to mix it up just a little bit. And I want to make sure we reduce this by 3/4. So you've got to be really careful. You don't want to over-reduce it. I'm going to turn my heat up just a little bit. And I just want to check to make sure if I pull my pan forward, I can see what the leftover moisture in the bottom of the pan. And again, I want to make sure we reduce this by at least 3/4. It doesn't, for a Bearnaise, it can be close to au sec. But I want to leave a little bit extra so I have a little bit extra moisture when I start cooking my eggs. So again, I'm mixing this up, reducing it down. I'm almost at 3/4. I'm feeling really comfortable at that stage. I'm going to quickly bring in this pot here, and with my little sieve, I'm going to add my reduction. Scraping off all the goodies in that pot, putting that off to the side. And as you can see here, and I'll turn this towards you, that I have a reduction to where it's been reduced down to about probably 3/4 like the book talks about. And all those flavors I'm going to extract and take out of my reduction. All right, now that I have my beautiful reduction done, and as you can see, I'm sitting it in this pot because I don't want my reduction to go all over the bowl here or I'm going to lose it. So I'm tilting it towards you so I can keep it isolated in one direction. Now, the next step after making the reduction is we are going to add our yolk to it. So we have our 2 yolks, and I'm going to go ahead and add my 2 yolks. Once I add my 2 yolks, it's really important. I want to incorporate this really, really well with the yolk. And again, you can see I'm staying very isolated in one area of the bowl so I don't move that yolk all over the place. And I want to make sure that I get a really nice incorporation with that reduction that we made into our yolk. And it's incorporated really well. Now that I have it incorporated really well, I'm going to take this off to the side here. And on the stove, I have a pot with hot water. It was already close to a boiling point. I want to make sure that I get some really nice steam coming off of this water here. We're going to take our mixing bowl and we're going to start cooking our eggs with our reduction to where we're going to fold in, to where it's going to be folded, to where we get nice, beautiful ribbons. So just be a little careful. I can take a towel, and I have to be a little bit careful with this process. If you want to do a towel, you don't have to. I'm going to stay away from the towel. A lot of students make the mistake of putting a towel over this and they start burning their bar towel. So we can just leave it off. The most important thing is for you guys to make sure that the mixing bowl that you're using over the double boiler is not small enough and it's big enough for your pot here, which is really important. So I'm gonna move this pan out of the way. I'm gonna step over to the stove. Now, I'm gonna point this your direction so you can see this. So this is gonna be a little challenging for me because I'm doing it backwards, but let's see if we can make this work. I'm gonna turn my heat down a little bit, and if you look inside the pot, I have a nice small percolation with some nice steam coming up. We wanna use that steam to cook these eggs. Now you really wanna be careful when you're cooking these eggs because you wanna stay isolated in the one spot, and you really wanna move it around really, really well so we can start cooking the eggs and making ribbons. And if it gets too hot, you can pull your pan off a little bit and keep mixing a little here so that it doesn't overcook and it cools it down just a little bit. I'm gonna put it back on the heat. I'm gonna grab a towel here. I'm gonna step over to the side, keeping it pointed towards you. And I'm gonna continue to cook these until I get ribbons. I'm gonna pull it off of the heat. I don't want it to overcook. I don't want it to scramble in the pot. I'm incorporating it very well. I'm gonna put it back on the heat. I wanna continue this process until I actually come to a nice ribbon. I'm gonna pull it off just a little bit here, so that way I don't heat it up too quickly to where they scramble. Again, same process. With that reduction in the yolks, I'm staying isolated in one area. I wanna bring it to ribbons. I'm gonna let it cool for a second. Keep mixing it so it doesn't overheat. Put it back on the double boil. The steam is going to help cook those eggs. I want to cook it until I start getting some nice ribbons. Now, it will start to froth up a little bit, start to get a little bit thick, but you don't want to overcook it or you're going to get scrambled eggs. So this is a patience game, and it's just a matter of making sure that you got a nice ribbon with your yolk and your reduction. I'm going to pull this off so it doesn't cook too fast, so it cools it a little bit. Now I'm going to put it back on again, and I'm starting to get those ribbons. You can see it's starting to hold its shape with the ribbons, so I'm almost there. I'm going to pull it off, incorporate it, keep mixing it so it doesn't cook too fast, and I'm going to put it down one more time here, and I'm really close to being done. You can see those ribbons starting to form. Just a little bit further. With that reduction, I'm going to pull it off so it doesn't overcook. Pulling it down a little bit in the process, putting it back on. Now I'm really starting to see those beautiful ribbons come into play. So at this stage with the ribbons, I'm going to take it just a little bit further. Beautiful ribbons, cooling it down, starting to get nice and ribbony. And at this stage, I'm gonna pull it off. So I have these really, really nice ribbons with my cooked egg and my reduction. So at this stage, I'm gonna keep my pot tilted. Now, what I wanna do is we're gonna get set up on adding the clarified butter, but I wanna pull my pot off of the stove, and we're gonna utilize that here. And I'm gonna show you just a second here how we can utilize this hot water. At this stage, I can take a towel, and I can put this towel right over my pot that's not on the stove, and I can use this to help keep my ribbons nice and warm so that we can get started on making the emulsion with the clarified butter. Now we have our clarified butter, and our clarified butter is at about 130 degrees. Now we want to make sure it stays a little bit warm, because if it's too hot, it's going to break. If it's too cold, it's going to break. And I'm keeping it nice and warm, and I've stabilized my container on the rag over that hot water, keeping my reduction and my egg yolk nice and warm. So we're going to start off by adding a little bit of clarified butter to this. And again, you want to go a drop at a time, just so you can start the emulsion. And once your emulsion starts, you can kind of go a little bit quicker. Now keep in mind, as you can see, I'm staying in one isolated area, which is really important to understand so we don't move all out over the mixing bowl. And we have it just in one area. So I'm going to continue to add my clarified butter. You can see the emulsion is taking place. And as I add my butter, you're going to notice it's going to get a little bit thick. So when it gets a little bit thick, at this stage, you can take a little bit of warm water. Let me get some warm water here. I didn't have that set up just yet. And it's just going to be lukewarm. You don't want it to be too hot. That's going to help thin it out. So we're going to take a little bit of this warm water, and I'm going to add a little bit of this warm water to it, just so that it thins out my hollandaise. Now you can see how it thinned it out really well. Now I'm going to come back. This is my Bearnaise, excuse me. And I'm going to start adding my warm butter again. Slowly at a time so we get it incorporated. As I continue to add my butter, it's going to thicken up. It's looking really nice. Got to have the proper temperature of your clarified butter to keep the emulsion. Nice, it's starting to get a little on the thick side. So again, I'm going to add a little more warm water to it, just to thin it out just a little bit so I can add a little more butter. So we add a little bit of water, which thins it out. Then I'm going to come in and add some more clarified butter to this. Very nice, coming together really, really well. And again, as it continues to get a little bit too thick, you can add just a tiny bit of warm water to it to thin it. Then we're going to finish it with a little bit of lemon juice. Take a little bit of lemon juice at this stage, add a tiny bit of lemon juice, add just a tiny bit more water, it's just a little on the thick side. Now at this stage, I got a really nice, rich, clarified start of a Bearnaise, so it's pretty much a hollandaise at this point. I'm going to stop with the whisking right now, put the whisk off to the side. Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to add a little bit, touch of cayenne to give it a little bit of heat. I'm going to take my chopped tarragon and throw in my chopped tarragon. Then I'm going to take some chopped parsley and throw in a little bit of chopped parsley. At this stage, I'm going to take my sauce, move this stuff off to the side here. Now I can take my spatula here and I can fold it into my beautiful hollandaise. And I got this really nice, beautiful Bearnaise with the chopped tarragon and that tarragon reduction. So let's go ahead and pan this up so you guys can see. We have a nice, beautiful, velvety Bearnaise sauce from scratch, utilizing a different type of reduction and folding in tarragon, parsley, and a little bit of cayenne for a little bit of heat on the end.